And Claire Fogvane, let's go back to African Utility Week. How is it going to try and bring together the different competing interests on one hand, as well as address the situation, especially in the South African context that we're faced with?
Well, from a renewable energy point of view, Tim, one of the things that we are going to be looking at the conference is the fact that in many ways renewable energy does make business sense, financially especially. And we've actually got a couple of speakers who are going to be talking on the business case for renewables in Africa and in South Africa. We've also got Tembani Bakula, who is the regulatory member of NERSA, which is the energy regulator, and he's actually going to be talking on the introduction of the renewable feed-in tariffs into South Africa. These have sort of set out prices by which, or for which renewable energies can be purchased, and they are making renewable energies, at least for the next couple of years, very competitive in terms of coal generation and more traditional sort of generation methods. And I think that this is also proving to be a great incentive for independent power producers and wind farm developers and renewable energy developers to really consider South Africa in particular as a good investment opportunity.
It's now 19 minutes past 8, and I would like to believe that some of them already regard it as such. But what has the experience been, Mo Siddiqui?
With renewable energy in South
Yes,
Africa.
and contact with authorities here, and the situation that you have to deal with. I'm asking this because the talk does not seem to be focused on renewable energy that much at this time. Or it does not seem like there are any new investments that are going to be made in that regard. So why is that? I mean, Claire says there are opportunities here, but what is your experience?
I think most of our people that we're working with, the developers who are trying to develop wind farms, have accused Eskom of blocking entry into the IPPs, into the electricity market. It's a very tough situation to be a developer in South Africa at the moment. You kind of get the financing, you kind of speak to the equipment manufacturers, you have the land, you have the buy-in of the public in South Africa, and everybody wants this to happen. And then you go to Eskom and you ask for a PPA, you try and apply for the MT-BBB scheme, you try and apply for the refit scheme, and it just kind of stops. And I think the first move has really been taken last week in the President's State of the Nation address, where he's actually proposed the establishing of an operator. It's happened in a number of other countries where we've been working, and I think this is the first step for South Africa to move in that kind of direction.
It's 20 minutes past 8. We're taking calls from you, 0891 104 208, SMS is 34701, 34701. 0891 104 208. The options are there. Independent producers being made part of the supply chain of energy in the country. The utilization of renewable energies, that seems to have stalled. Not much investment taking place in that regard. What do you make of that? And my guests are Claire Fogvane, Doug Cooney, and Mo Siddiqui. Would like to hear from you. We'll be taking your calls in a moment.
AM Live on SAFM.
22 minutes past 8. We go straight to the lines now. We're joined by Ron Smith from Middleburg. Good morning to you. Welcome, Ron Smith.
Good morning to you, Tim, and good morning to your panel.
Yep.
Tim, I'd like to raise a specific question here. What we're seeing out of Eskom is a similar obstruction to other entries into that arena that we had with Telkom and independent operators. And there needs to be a total restructuring where Eskom does not have a major monopoly and can block other developments. First point. The next point is that there's recently been, and I think it's within the last couple of days, that President Obama has signed a loan agreement to a nuclear power generator in the States. And I would like to know what size that plant is, what the total cost of that guarantee is, and at what price they expect to deliver power onto the network.
But you're talking about the United States now.
That's right. And the reason for this is that we need to get a real picture as to whether our electricity prices are international prices okay, competitive international prices, or whether these are artificially inflated
Right.
to support a monopoly operator.
Ron Smith, thank you very much. Doug Cooney, I think you can deal with those questions. And I'm also curious to know why in South Africa nuclear energy is not being considered, you think, Doug?
Yes, Tim. The first part of the question, really, in terms of the system operator and bringing in independent power producers, the regulatory environment and the policy environment has not been very clear of how independent power operators operate in this market up to now. The policy has now been created by the Department of Energy to form the system operator, therefore a neutral, independent entity to procure power from independent power producers. That's the first step. In more developed markets, you have a transmission system operator, which includes the transmission grid. This gives the grid a totally independent stature and a neutral stature. The system operator at this stage would appear just to be the operator of the system in South Africa, while the transmission lines business will still stay in Eskom. So there's still some more steps to be taken in order to get a friendly environment for independent power producers to operate. The second question regarding nuclear power, I'm unable to give figures on that. What I can say is that, in South Africa up to now, and with the Electricity Act, etc., nuclear power is not part of the menu in which independent power producers would operate. That is a matter for the state and probably a state-owned enterprise.
But any comment from you, Mo Siddiqui? What are the issues around nuclear power? In Europe, they're using nuclear power in other parts of the world. But in South Africa, it's a matter that has been deferred for some time now.
I suppose I'm one of the lucky ones in the world. I had the choice of where I wanted to live, and I chose to live in Denmark. The reason why I chose to live in Denmark was because here in Denmark, we don't have nuclear power. The country's completely stayed away from nuclear power and tried to focus on the renewable aspects. There's one island up here in Denmark which is powered completely by renewable energy. One of my big concerns about nuclear power is, well, it is a cheap way of producing energy. The problem is for our kids, our grandchildren, etc., we don't quite know how to dispose of the nuclear waste. In the United Kingdom, for example, we've seen nuclear power stations basically being mothballed because we don't quite know how to dispose of all of the harmful effects that it may have for the environment.